Mic check, 1, 2. Assalamualaikum dan selamat sejahtera. Dengan sukacita, kami memohon perhatian kepada semua para jemputan pada majlis ini. Ini adalah video prosedur laluan kecemasan ICC. Dimaklumkan bahawa tiada latihan kecemasan akan dilakukan semasa majlis ini. Bagi para jemputan di dalam Dewan Musyawarah, terdapat dua laluan kecemasan. Jika terjadinya kecemasan, sila beredar keluar menuju ke kawasan letak kereta C. Patuhi arahan pegawai keselamatan yang bertugas yang ditempatkan di setiap laluan kecemasan bagi membantu pergerakan keluar jika berlaku sebarang kecemasan. Bergerak dengan tenang, cepat dan selamat. Sekian disampaikan makluman prosedur laluan kecemasan bagi para jemputan di dalam Dewan Musyawarah ini. Jawatan Kuasa Pandu ingin mengucapkan ribuan terima kasih di atas perhatian BIS kita. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera.
Am I announcing my panelists or is the MC announcing my panelists? Okay, all right. So my panelists, let's start off with our Permanent Secretary at the MTIC, Mr. Nazri. Can I get you on stage? On my right, Pingaran Sarima, the IFB chairperson. And the lady behind EBA, Ikubumi Architect, Yanti. Now, because I'm quite far away from the crowd and I have a bottle of water, I am taking my mask off. I hope that's all right. So obviously this session was to start initially at 9:45 and at 10:30, but we thank you all for still attending today's session. So the overall theme of this year's MYCE for Digital Week is towards a transformed new norm. I'll go straight to numbers. I mean, my panelists initially, see, the backstory of this session for myself was that I wasn't the moderator until 28 hours ago. So they were prepared some questions, and I didn't want to know the answers. And I said, I look at the question and said, I'm now the moderator, I'll come up with a different set of questions. So this is unscripted, they're not prepared, but don't worry, these questions or this session, you should be able to answer these questions. We'll start with something very simple. It's to do with numbers. Ladies first. We'll go with Yanti, closest to myself. On a scale of 1 to 10, now please be honest, where do you see Brunei in terms of being digitally savvy or being digitally ready? Where's the gap and why? 1 to 10, obviously 1 being we have a phone, and then 10 more than that.
In general, so I can't actually say, because there are some certain things yang strong enough, but some of it, so I'm just going to say, in general, I would actually see Brunei as 6.
Why is that? How do you come with that number?
If I look at construction punya industry, right, looking at industry itself, okay, I mean, forget about infrastructure ready ka, but it's not, I think being digital is not just about infrastructure, it's really readiness of your people do at the same time. So how ready are they? But if I look at construction industry, we are nowhere close to 5. We are probably 4 because technology is still very traditional. So again, it's a spread of industries we're looking at. Some are very strong. You can actually look at financial institutions. They're very strong in terms of digitalization. But there are certain areas that is still far away.
Now, Pringan Sorima, as someone who represents the industry, you've been recently appointed as chairperson of IFB. What do you feel your industry is at? 1 to 10. You can be honest. Mind you, your industry players are watching and listening.
Personally, I feel that a 5, because for digitalization, for an economy, a digitization economy to spur or to, it does not just only take the government, nor does it only take the industry. It also public plays an important role. The education sector needs to pull up itself, to come up to the stage of even a 4 or a 3. Yeah, our human resource bar in Brunei, that's the pain here. Being very honest, yeah, and I agree with YB Yanti. We are not very there yet. I mean, yeah, we have got to admit that we are tech savvy, but how is it measured? We all, Brunei superseded everybody in terms of ownership, in terms of a phone. Is that a sign? What? Yeah.
So that's definitely not enough. I mean, having over 100% mobile phone penetration is not enough to say, yep, we're at 10 in terms of digital readiness. Tuan Nazri, so yourself as, in the government, where do you see, I guess, the whole of nation in terms of 1 to 10?
Thank you, Hong. I think before I answer that, I want I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone for being here, and also to convey our apologies for the changes, last-minute changes this morning. I hope you understand why those changes took place. Back to your question. It's very difficult to disagree with ladies, so, but the ladies are talking about 5 and 6. I'll give it a range, 5 to 7. Men are normally indecisive, so 5 to 7. So why? Before you ask me why, 7 because precisely what was mentioned by Pengan Sarimah here. We have a very high ownership of mobile phones. I believe the figure is about 140%, and increasing number of fixed broadband. It's about 70%. 75% to be exact. I think I have the numbers in front of me. And then, if you go anywhere now, even though this is not ideal, people are saying, pay me, transfer to me, online payment. It may not be an ideal cashless payment, but it's there. But the 5 comes in terms of, the services out there. I think we have a number. I've forgotten the number. I believe we have about 200 over services, but not many of the services are what I call A to Z. A to Z means beginning, providing you a service, and then completion of the payment, and after that, delivering the service. So that's where the 5 comes from. So I'll give it a 5 to 7. So that's a range. I hope that answers your question.
I mean, my experience with the government side of being digital was, obviously most of us, because you all had to scan in to get in here, would be, and also to submit your ART results, would be the BruHealth app. Now, for MTIC's part, I experienced it during the height of the pandemic when my vehicle license expired, would be the Transport BN app. No doubt those two apps, we cannot lie and say, oh, they was perfect. No, there were hiccups on most applications, whether it's government or non-government, whether it's telco or banking. So, but then I think it's important that we push ahead. I mean, what if suddenly the uptake of BruHealth wasn't great? Do we then say, all right, we're not going to do it? What if the uptake of Transport BN wasn't great? Are we still going to go back to the counters? I mean, if one was to go into a full-on digital ecosystem, whether it involves through the telco apps, currently it's for paying your bills and other services. And for the banking, I can't imagine my life without being able to pay Yanti for her services and etc. And to buy her stuff. So when can we see the other industries? Pengan Sarimah, someone who represents the industry, I'll also get to Yanti as well in a sec for your industry in construction. But you overall represent the overall industry. The telco has done their part by having the apps. DSC recently launched as well their own mobile app. Banking, as I mentioned before, they have their own apps. Government has their apps. But being digital in a digital ecosystem is not just about apps, is it? When can we see more automation and more digital use in public spaces by the industry? What would it take?
What would it take?
Oh yeah, you can think first.
What would it take? Well, if you were to compare ourselves, if you were to look outside of Brunei, how actually this digital economy actually took off, you'd actually see that there's a three-party players in here. It's not just the industry itself. Yeah, it will also require the government together with the industry, and of course you have your end users, the public. Yeah, so if you were to ask me now, if we have, or what will we see in the next going forward? Well, we actually already have your BruHealth, We have dynamics on board, working in collaboration. I think also our transport BN is also with an industry player. So, and the telcos, they are also, industry people. So we are actually not far off, I would say. Well, I'll have to ask you a question here now. What kind of services or app that you want to see from the industry?
I mean, not necessarily application. I mean, more, for example, I've been traveling recently. For example, when you go to Changi Airport, you see cleaners almost non-existent in the airport. Then you have this robotics cleaning up the airport, whether it's being actually cleaning or using ultraviolet to, clean up. So how can the industry, not telco, not banking, but overall, the IT industry can have more of a vested interest in it?
More of it?
Of an interest. How can they monetize?
I don't think we are that far, are we? No, we're not. We're getting there. We'll get there. I am very sure of this because if you see during this COVID, we actually have booking online, things like that. So we're getting there. I can't put my foot down to say by 2025 or 2034, but we are getting there, yeah?
Yanti, in your industry, do you see how far behind, how can we take advantage, how can your industry take advantage of technology in the construction industry?
Okay, so in the private sector, so I'm actually going to be in the private sector now. There's simple three letters that we look into. So we look at fee, F-E-E. Okay, our private sector is all about money. So it needs to be fast, that's F. Efficient, that's E, and also effective. So business needs to actually move fast. How we think, everything is fast. Data is supposed to be at the end of your fingertips. That is how fast we actually want it. Now, we talked about, I'm only going to cover when it comes to construction industry. We talked about IR 4.0 pre-COVID, sebelum COVID sudah, lama sudah. And if we actually based on a 2015 McKinsey survey globally, construction industry is really at the bottom two. The final one, yang paling last, is actually agriculture. But if you look at where it is now, agriculture and also construction, it has flipped. So why is it that construction is really taking time? Again, cara kita ni membuat bangunan is still very traditional. We don't actually use much of automation or robotics, these kind of things. But it's not just about, in the construction industry, again, 13% of, in 2020, the survey, 13% of the world global GDP comes from the construction industry, 13%. And where are we in Brunei in terms of really picking this one up? Singapore has gone through BIM, which is the Building Information Modeling, more than 20 years ago. But in order for us to actually do this, it has to be integrated. It cannot take one to tango. It needs to have all the team in the construction industry, whether you are architects, M&E, CNS, contractors, other specialists, to be using the same data or putting the data in. That's the reason why in the construction now, we don't look at 3D, we look at 4D and 5D. 3D is where you come up with your design. 4D is when you actually start to put your scheduling in, every single thing. 5D is where the cost actually comes in. So in order for you to actually get a lot of things being constructed, within time, within the cost, save money, all those kind of things, we have to put our mind in the 5D. And we are no way close. Because even though we actually look at architects doing a lot of things in 3D, we might not get the rest of the team to be in par with us. So that's where we are really quite far away. We've been actually doing AutoCAD. Yes, AutoCAD is the tools. Used to be everything is pakai tangan kan. It has moved, yeah, but then it doesn't actually have moved that far yet. So if you actually talk about paperless in construction at site, there's no way that people still are practicing paperless. But if you look at other countries, they don't even want to bring papers anymore. They use QR code because they have the latest drawings di sana tu. Pakai se QR code, you actually refer your drawings or when you actually do inspection based on that, so that everybody decide will actually have access to the same drawings where it's being controlled. So that's one thing. But to actually have everybody align to this actually approach, to this kind of approach, we'll actually get everyone to be in the same scenario.
All right, so you've identified your pain points in that over here we're still used to going full on paper. So, Tuan Nazri, I want to get to you on this one. Like in the oil and gas industry, it's mandatory for them to abide by, having, when they're going into a tender, into a project, for example, they have to have their HAC rules in place and what have you. What kind of policies can the government play in ensuring in the industry that Yanti is in this case construction, that they allocate a budget that the approach for a certain project of worth, I don't know, $10 million, $100 million, for example, would there be policies in the future to ensure that the contractors utilize technology as best as they can? Can you share us your plans?
Okay, thank you. Can I comment on what Yanti has said earlier first? I think about, she mentioned about fee, fast, effective, and efficient. I think that's a very good point where we need to get the basic right. I think take a few steps back, I suppose. I think learn over the years. We were talking earlier about, there is a generation gap between from where am I? Left to right. Yeah, I seem to be the oldest one. I seem to be the only one who remembers that we still use the 5-inch floppies for our programming. That was way back in, I don't know, early 90s, I suppose. We were talking about machines such as Amstrad machines. So I think let's get the fundamental right. I think from pre-2000 and 2000 onwards, we've had a lot of development in terms of application, whatever services that we have in Brunei. But I think it's about time we need to get the fundamental correct, fundamental right, as Yanti mentioned, to make it fast, effective, and efficient. In my opinion, I think this is reflected also in the Digital Economy Master Plan. Get 3 things right. First and foremost, get digital ID right, because that's where your KYC comes in any transaction. Get the payment hub right, so that make it efficient. Not just efficient, but make it affordable for everyone to do transaction. And then, going back to data, get the architecture of data right, meaning everybody have access to data. Everybody share data. And in technology such as, I'm not an IT person, so I was told blockchain is supposed to be able to address this. But data sharing is important. So get your National Information Hub or public data right. I think, coming back, what was your question again, Ham? I've totally forgotten now about it.
What are you ensuring? I mean, would you have in future policies to support, in this case, Yanti's industry, to ensure that when they go into projects, you must have a budget allocated to become more adoption of technology?
Okay, thank you, Ham. Thank you for reminding me. I think let's go back to the Digital Economy Master Plan again. The fundamentals of it is what we call Digital Transformation Plan. Every sector must have their own transformation plan. So in it, they must have a vision of what the sector is going to be. So after that, they need to address things like innovation, productivity, export manpower, that sort of thing. So in it, they need to identify all the necessary action plans, including what you're talking here, the incentives, what sort of feature if you're moving on into a project, for example. I think we had a very interesting discussion a few days ago with a minister about, what a system should have. gone are the days where, we are now in times where AI is a must in the system. AI is a must in this system. So there's sort of, understanding, you can call it policy, that, minimum standards that a system must have is AI. Things like that should be in place so that the industry knows where we are heading. So to me, I want the industry to know what we plan to do, what we want to do, so that they can plan it. As I mentioned last year, I think last year in the same forum, I think the driver is the industry. The industry should be the key player to take up, all these opportunities. I think, so that sort of, if you can call it policy, letting the private sector know that, that we have this plan, please take this opportunity. The government will just facilitate them.
Your three flagship projects are namely the National Information Hub, the Digital Identity, and Digital Payment. Now, we'll get into that later. But you mentioned a point where I'm curious, I'm sure the audience are as well. You said the industry needs to take the lead. What do you mean? I mean, give us an example. Okay, I'll share. For example, the telco industry, they have taken the lead. They have, they made it life easier now by having people to subscribe to news services and also paying their bills. Banking, we mentioned before. But when you mean the industry, can you elaborate more on that? They need to take the lead. I want to know more.
Okay.
And to add to that, how can they take advantage of your three core flagship projects? Tough question, but you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Ham. You told me you're not going to ask a difficult question, but never mind. I think, if you go around the exhibition this morning, a lot of examples where the industry is taking the lead. A good example is, I think if you go to a few booths, UNN, I think there are a few others, I can't remember now, about data center. One of the issues about cloud, again, I must qualify myself, I'm not an IT guy. So one of the issues about cloud is actually security, where it resides. So a solution that was proposed was to have it, reside in Brunei. So you could see in the exhibition just now, people having a data center in Brunei. So that will solve. So it's where an example where the government says, okay, you can have your cloud policy, but you must have the data center residing in Brunei. So that's one solution. Another example, a very simple example, I think Baiduri, I think introduced a cashless vending machine. If you remember, one of the issues with vending machine is around Brunei, there are not many cashless vending machines, so you need cash. So one common example when ART was introduced into a vending machine, common complaint, if you read the social media, they said, I need to pay $70. So I need to have my $10, $5, and $1 ready. So what happened if the dollar notes got stuck? So a simple solution is having a cashless vending machine. So that's where, the industry can lead. I have a very good reason why I feel that the industry can lead. I think the industry is more nimble. I think they are more adaptable towards towards technology. Technology is moving very fast. I think I saw a Nokia 3310 that was from, I don't know, late 1990s. Now we are here. People found that phone very, very ancient. So, but private sector can adopt very quickly to technology, and they can bring in, the expertise, the knowledge from outside, knowledge transfer. So we feel that that's where the industry can come in. They're more nimble, they're more adaptable. The government just say, okay, this is what we wanted to do. Please come back to us with the solution. So
you're saying you're coming up with policies to give more flexibility to the industry?
I think, in a way, yes. That's why my point earlier, we want to share with the public, with the sector, with the private sector, saying that, okay, this is what we wanted to do. I think if you go back to the Digital Economy Master Plan, there are a number of projects that we identified. The intention was to tell the private sector, these are what we have in mind. So be ready, come with a solution, and you'll be involved. So it's basically it, yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned something interesting about the vending machine. I recently came back from travel and I was walking around the side of the road. This guy was selling peanuts, right? Like caramelized peanuts. And then we wanted to pay, and I was getting ready to get my cash out, but he said, would you like to pay cash or card? And this thing only cost less than $5. And they were already ready with their card machine. So on an industry standpoint, Pingan and Sarima, how far along are we? I mean, in terms of use of technology where your convenience stores and other stores, instead of doing, bank transfer is not as safe, you have quick pay and other forms of payment, but when can you see suddenly card terminals being made readily available? How can that become more of the norm? Like, right now someone probably who wants to sell something right now here has a card terminal. When can we see that?
Well, I believe we actually already now are starting. Okay, there's one down the road along my house where actually I'm actually paying, it's a kadai runcit, where I'm actually using my card to pay for my grocery. So very soon, inshallah, maybe this will actually replicate at other convenience stores. But you see, you travel, I travel too. We like to see if we can di kedai tamu, if we can just use a scan QR code and pay. I think, inshallah, maybe we'll see that soon too. That would be called the cashless society.
Yeah, Yanti, what do you think, what's holding back your industry and I think overall in terms of adopting technology? What do you feel is lacking?
Mindset is one thing, Pulanga. Not everybody is really ready to really move. What I did, especially during masa COVID time, when banyak, everybody's like working from home, because of the quarantine, our red code and stuff like that. But because like in the private sector, you have to strive, I was not able to actually close my office, even though there's already guidelines from MOH. We basically follow SOP. But when you're red, I would actually say, okay, come to the office, but test every single day. That's how we do. I mean, there's only guidelines, but it's you who's actually running your business and making sure that under my office, there's about 30 people. And I have to make sure that there's bread and butter arah durang because I cannot cut durang punya number of people. So everybody needs to actually play their role and contribute. So we have to do that, we strive. And construction industry is the worst and toughest time during COVID because of the workforce. The site, you will actually get clusters and clusters, right? And you can't delay. And one of the projects that I've actually gone through was the abode, which is the Eco Resort Temburong. We were only 2 months, an extension of time. The manpower, the contractors punya orang malarkan najwa. But the thing is, we cannot delay this. We have to answer to our client, who is also, they have shareholders and investors. So we end up changing our strategy all the time. The master plan was actually changed maybe more than 15 kali to identify, and not just because it's really towards a sustainable development. It is 100%, again, this is one of the first Brunei punya resort that is using 100% renewable energy and not even connected to the grid. And we managed to finish the whole thing, but we end up like changing how we approach in terms of design, bringing more off-site fabrication di luar, and you actually have less people to work the site. So all this strategy comes in because where there is actually challenging situation, you will always come up with a solution. Not an excuse to actually say, oh, we can't finish this project for another year. because we can't answer that to our client. Our client is our paymaster. They say, you have to finish this project by this. So we have to do that. But if you actually work as a team, same mindset, regardless macam mana, ada orang takut dia kan ke site tu kan, like for us, we don't even have clusters coming in from our site. I don't have clusters, alhamdulillah, coming from my office. As long as we take care of our people, we make sure that they are safe at the same time, we don't face this. I know that we actually, I remember I had this session, forum recently. There's also another issue of even asking people to come back to the office is also very challenging, you know. So because they're so used to working from home, but in my situation in the construction industry, we cannot afford to have people working from home unless durang are positive. But if they are close contact, we actually allow them to come, but mesti test every single day, and we give a segregation, like a room for them to actually do work, because we have to do this. Otherwise, like I said, my last resort is to cut the number of people working in my company, and we never did. And we sustained, and alhamdulillah, we managed to strive. And those companies who actually survived during those COVID time, I salute them because they are the warriors who managed to sustain. So digitalization is just one step to make sure that we should take advantage of certain things. One is to look at the safety of our people working this site kahapa, but also looking at how digitalization can boost productivity. So that's all I can actually share for now.
Nazri, what are you doing to ensure that this whole digital ecosystem that you have, these three core flagship projects, right? What are you doing to ensure that we are staying, forget about being ahead, but what are we doing to ensure that we are on the right path?
Again, I think it's my duty to promote the Digital Economy Master Plan again. My apologies for repeating it again and again. But I think the key, if you want to focus on the enablers, I think look at what you're trying to do with the enablers. The first one is actually about to provide a Smart Nation platform. I think if you go, again, you go to our booth, Smart Nation booth, I think at the front in the concourse, you mentioned about, the three flagship projects. I think it's about, again, to repeat my earlier point, getting things right, get the fundamentals right. I think Puan Salima was asked about when will we be ready about with cashless. I think the answer is in one of the exhibit. There's a timeline where the digital payment hub will be ready. The first phase will be ready. I think most importantly for me, the way I see things, making it seamless and affordable. When we talk about very affordable transaction, again, I'm not a financial guy. The rates we were talking about currently, the merchant bank rate is about 4 to 5%. I think Tuan Radin knows about this, 4 to 5%. I think the merchant bank rate. I think any other payment transaction costs about the same. I think the lowest is quick pay. It's about just about just below about 2%. But for MSMEs, those are very high figures. So we need to look at lowering it, making it more affordable. More affordable. That's why people like online transfer is basically zero transaction cost for what seems to be zero transaction cost. But it's not seamless. You cannot do it between banks. Fortunately, during COVID, yes, it's free. But I think now it's moving on from COVID. It's not free. So we have to make things affordable. So again, the Smart Nation platform must be there, so that we can have, we can jump. It's no longer about walking. If you walk, then you'll be left behind. We find the right balance between jumping and also not leaving others behind. So we need to have, I think, get the fundamentals right. That's why, for me personally, these three projects are very, very important, so that everyone can benefit from it. Not just the government, but including the private sector, which you can utilize it. Digital ID, it will solve the problem of everyone having their own ID. digital payment, is making it affordable, and the aspiration for the data sharing is actually we can share the data from the private sector and the government sector with all the necessary policy making it secure. Yeah.
Thank you, Nazri. Now, I've been given the signal to do this, so I'm not sure whether it's going to end this session, or do we have a chance to go to Q&A from the floor? Yes, Q&A from the floor, or are we ending it? 3 questions? Can we have 3 questions? Or do we... 1 question? 1 question. Yeah, can we share the Slido, please? Just 1 question. Well, that's with the highest. For our industry, is being digital transformation a necessity or nice to have?
Number 1.
Yeah, for our industry, is being digital transformation a necessity or nice to have? I think it's for all 3.
All 3?
Okay, if
Anyone can answer that?
I can
Yep.
actually just touch on this. Definitely not the nice to have. If you actually look at in the ASEAN region, how much our neighboring countries are really moving so fast. Our GDP among the ASEAN member state countries are the lowest. So I think we should make sure that we are not left behind. So it is a necessity. We really have to keep on pushing. You know, the CLMV countries, especially Vietnam, they are really pushing this on technology. Way so fast than you can ever imagine. Next year, Indonesia is chairing. They are so way aggressive when it comes to technology. So we should not see it as a nice to have. We cannot be ketinggalan among the ASEAN member state countries. We have to move further.
Okay, I'd like to add on to that. It's either we embrace it today, or we will be a sinking, we don't want to be a sinking economy. Look at how everybody is actually moving so fast forward. Elon Musk flew to the moon. That's one. We have, we have Dubai now. The drone that transport human, yeah? And if you were to look even not too far away, just our neighbor Singapore, Brunei, my beautiful and beloved Brunei, was at number 1 in ASEAN, in terms of our GDP, in terms of, but let's not be, like I said, the sinking ship, the sinking economy. Brunei have led in many ways, up in terms of leadership, where technology is concerned. We started a lot of things, but there's no follow through. I think Yan, continue with what YB Yanti just said just now. Let's embrace this. By the way, digital economy is here. Stop angan-angan. We cannot go backward. We just have to go forward. Yeah? And technologies today are they're easy to use. Okay? Even my father-in-law knows how to use a FaceTime with his grandson, 84 years old. So it's not tough. And ICT is just an enabler. Yeah? AI is here, blockchain is here. Just last year, if anybody is a Korean drama, Korean, BTS and all that, there's this guy who passed away, and last year they celebrated his anniversary. They literally brought him in a holographic form to join his team to sing for the mother and the wife. So nothing is impossible. Yeah, please go embrace this. Yeah, please.
Tuan Nazri, final word from you.
Very interesting question. I think you can debate it all night long, but in my opinion, it's a necessity. It's a question of survival. I think the last 2 years, of COVID has shown us, why we need to transform digitally. Why? Everybody was clamoring for online platform. You see a huge jump of people doing cashless transaction. So what does that say? You need it to survive. Who would have thought way back in 2019, working from home is something that can be done. So, but what made that possible? We transform ourselves into doing things. So that's, we need to transform digitally. The industry need to transform, need to keep up. If not, we will be left behind. So for me, it's necessity because it's fundamental. It's survival. So I think that hopefully the last 2 years has shown that we need to do this. Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening, and we're on to our next session. Thank you very much.
Just a general reminder, audience is able to participate in the conference by asking questions using Slido by scanning the QR code projected on the screen. The next topic is the experience economy. And for that, we would like to invite Yang Mulia, our Radin Sufri bin Radin Basrimin, CEO of Dentistry Digital TSC.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. And a very good afternoon. Yang Mulia Tuan Haji Muhammad Nazri bin Haji Muhammad Yusof, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Transportation and Info Communication, Chief Executive Officers, Senior Government Officers, ladies and gentlemen. I'm taking a slightly different take from digital economy. I spoke about digital economy last year. And if I may, I'd like to recap some summary from which I took from the Digital Economy Master Plan 2025. There are three parts to a digital economy. One is a digital government. There's increasing number of government services going from offline to online. I think Tuan Nazri validated that just now. I think there's coming close to about 200 services getting online. A digital economy, which is a more wider approach from beyond government to more public sector. And there's huge opportunity for local businesses, as Pengiran Sarima was saying, to contribute to create the digital economy. And I also advocated for a digital society to be a bit more, to support the use of more local apps and more online local services, rather than, getting on third-party sites. Perhaps get onto my DST a lot more. Now, more often than when we speak of digital, we speak of digital transformation. But when we speak about digital transformation, we only speak about one thing only, technology. And if there's any one thing I learned from DST in the last, I've been with DST DataStream Digital the last 2 years, it's all about people and experiences. These are the one that makes technology functional. Technology, as Pranjas Rima was saying, is just an enabler. Now, what's experience economy? How does it tie back to digital government, digital economy, and digital society? I'm going through the flip side. People talk about digital technology transformation. So I'm looking at it more on the flip side of the on the flip side, more on the people part. When it comes to technology, as with anything, with life, it's all about experiences. All of these are connected from having the right experiences. Experiences are outcomes of digital efforts. So, what is experience economy? In the experience economy, time is being used as the currency of value, either time well saved or time well spent. It's a definition from these authors, Pine and Gilmore, which I took this from. Now, talking about what is good experience and what is great experience. A good experience is either good functionality, this is where technology comes in, or the ability to cultivate joy. And both can come from technology or from people. Now, great experience is both. It's good functionality and the ability to cultivate joy. And to me, that's it. Experience are the outcome of digital efforts. Now, the experience economy entails in two factors. Again, as I said, one is time well saved. Time well served is usually a functional, it's a digital thing, and I think the panel talked about delivering products and services via online platforms to ensure functional experiences. By doing so, you do not have to meet your customers at your shops. You can meet your customers anywhere, whether it's on your IG, on your website, or on your online, or on your app. All right? You remove the friction by offering flexible payment methods. Again, there's one experience I think the panel were deliberating that is lacking, and also the delivery part, delivering products straight to your customers' doorsteps. If you have these three elements, this is one aspect of that you can consider to make a better experience for your customers. Now, the other factor is time well spent, cultivating joy. Now, designing an emotional experience gets a bit too tricky, as it needs to tackle the emotional aspect of experience. I'll talk a little bit about the psychological, aspects of emotional needs. You need to target one's psychological basic needs. Psychological basic needs are universal and crucial needs to ensure optimal well-being as human beings. These psychological basic needs are predictability, acceptance, and competence. All of this would help customers perceive that their time spent with your products or services is worth time well spent. Now, here's the tricky part. You need to target sensorial experiences that create positive sensations. Pairing positive cues with your products or services with sensorial triggers, be it audio or visual, will be able to uplift customers' mood and impact them positively. For those of you who attended our launch of the updated MyDST launch, we've added music, to the launch, and just to give a different dimension, rather than the video and the audio, and the whole experience, and you add a little bit of music, and you throw in a bit different experience. Okay. So coming back to online experience, while you introduce the functionality of an online experience, injecting a high in-person emotional experience, you may want to do an online and offline integration. I will share a little bit of a local use case later on from Brunei, homegrown food and beverage business. They call themselves F&B, but are they F&B? And we shall see later on. Now, how do you win in the experience wars? Even as technology improves and automation becomes very prevalent, most customers, I think there's one question on the Slido talking about, if digital comes in, then it will make people less redundant. Most customers, in fact, still prefer human interaction. Everyone interacts with your apps, your websites, and your portals. But the second something goes wrong, they want to talk to a person. Now, we took a survey. It's not a survey, sorry. I'm looking for this prompted me to take more local survey, but I couldn't get any local survey, so I've quoted a little bit of one from, my source from a PwC customer experience. Now, this survey asks for how much does one agree with this statement? Once technology becomes advanced, we don't need people. And it's a survey between US and other countries. And as you can see, both US and other countries strongly disagree that you do not need people. And there are more evidences to say that that human interaction, human being, are still required. Now, with digitalization, again, there is this huge misconception, which I find in my own experience, that there is this misconception that there's no need for human interaction. The main challenges of digitalization, any organizations thinks, once you digitalize, I will be replaced by robots, I will be replaced by softwares, I'll be replaced by websites and portals and apps. That it means that there is no need for human being. That's very, 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 very wrong. It's a very wrong misconception. You could have people who, yes, there are probably no front-faced customer serving team, but I try to refrain from giving examples in DST. But we have, you can actually deliver a SIM card and have it delivered to your doorsteps, and just by calling 16888, or you can order from online. But the number of human beings at the back to make sure that happens is a lot. The only thing that we do at the back is that we have scale, because now we can serve the whole Brunei through one central operations team, as opposed to having it scattered all over the branches. So take away that digitalization means, you're taking also removing human beings out of the equation. Now, the question also is it human or machine? It's human and machine, all right? Take advantage of automation, but make sure that your customers will reach a human when one is needed. Now, we're taking another survey, all right? Human versus automated interaction. These surveys indicated that the only outlier we saw is Japan, being 53%. Maybe it's different culture, different society. They don't think they need a lot of human. Only half of them thought of the same. But if we bring it closer to home, Singapore, and also even the Western countries like Germany and also UK, there's a high proportion of customers that still want to interact with human beings. So yes, the human beings creating the experiences. Now we've talked about the gap between machine and human to create great experiences. Let's talk about the experience gap itself. The experience gap leaves a sweet spot opportunity for every one of us here to explore. Yes, for sure, price and quality remain the top of mind for customers when they make buying decisions. But on the emotional aspect, when customers think that their interactions are negative and they have a very bad experience, it will greatly influence their purchasing decisions. And price and quality is just one of those factors. Imagine going to a shop and you being ignored, and you try, do you really want to give your money or not to the shop? That's where the part, just a simple demo about, what cultivating joy. You want to spend money, you want to enjoy spending your money. Now, there's also, this is a survey, again from the same source, PwC, that identified experience and expectation gaps, from industries, and it varies anything between airlines to media. Healthcare is one area, I think, there's a big gap between expectation and also importance. And banking and also restaurants. Surprisingly, not so much pressure on telcos. Telcos is about 64%. Not so much expectation compared to health and banking and also restaurants. Now, the gap is clear when you look at what customers expect versus the satisfaction they're actually getting. If we can close this gap, that is the sweet spot, where technology complements the human element of customer experience. You would have achieved a great customer experience. Recognize also areas of improvement, okay? Not all industries have an appetite to be digitalized. Again, similar survey. You will see that, again, if you look here, again, scheduling a doctor's appointment, booking a hotel, are very much demanded, I'll just take all countries now and I'll ignore a little bit of Colombia and US. These are the most desired to be services that customers wish to be more digitalized. Solving mobile problems is a little bit more midway. And all countries not necessarily, and this is probably true because not all our customers, not all our customers want to have their problems solved by technology. They would want to go to the branches or call our 151. So it's a fairly safe statement, 64%, because I think there's a middle ground between customers who call 151 or go to the app or go to the branches. So not all services want to be digitized. Look at what industries you are in and see whether you really want to take advantage of digitalization to find that sweet spot for you. Now, my next discussion, now we've gone through what is experience economy, what are the gaps, and next is about meeting your customers where they are. All right, these are channels that can lead to good experience. Channels are twofold. One is multi-channel and also omni-channel. I'll use DST as an illustration. Okay. Multi-channels are like DST. We have our app, MyDST. We have our website. You can generally shop on our dstcom.com.bn, but you can order services on our ordernow.dstcom.bn. You can interact to us via our email. You can call WhatsApp on @616-888. You can call us for your complaints 151, for ordering of services 16888. You can reach us, or we can reach you also on social media. And we have USSD, we can buy top-ups. And we also have our branches and our dealers. Now, it's a mix, it's all, again, not here to promote DST, but these are, and I think with those of businesses who have a lot of different channels as well, some have calls, some have social media, email, and branches, and so on. So these are multi-channel. This is just to demonstrate that with multiple channels, but the experience remains segmented. The interaction, for example, with a branch in Tutong and a branch in Bandar is different. I went to an electrical shop. I was quite happy. They were checking inventory. I asked, this fan, and they said, I don't know. It's not in stock, but they look at it. I said, can you check it from another branch? Oh, different branch, I don't know how. So you have to go there and check. So it's multiple channel, and the experience is distinctively separate, okay? Now, what is omni-channel? Okay, omni-channel is, on the other hand, simply put, all channels unifying sales and customer service channels to create a single experience for your customers. Again, I'll just use DST as an example. In practice, this means that offering customers a completely streamlined and connected experience across all platforms. If you interact us on MyDST through our portal, you will get the same answer, you will get the same response, and you will get the same experience. It provides help and support where your customers are looking at, and not necessarily, going to each channel. Wherever they are, you can meet them on your call, on the email, on the social media. So it's just animation of, what omnichannel is. Now, I'd like to share a report from a Salesforce State of Connected Customer report. Salesforce is one of the largest CRM application provider. 70% of customers nowadays find it easier to switch from brand to brand. Think switching your telco service provider. It's that easy. You send SMS, next thing you know, 3 hours later, you're on the next, you're next onto the next telco. If you don't like, if you hated somebody who was rude to you, yes, that's very true. And 66% will switch brand if you treat them as a statistic, all right, and instead of an individual. Again, it's all about experiences. This is how you can lose customers nowadays because of technology. Now, in conclusion, I strongly suggest that you all adopt an omni-channel strategy as an important consideration for your customers in a business setup. Now, I mentioned Brunei earlier. This is interesting, Brunei is at F&B. I think most of you probably have bought a drink from Brunei. But they're actually an FB Tech 3.0. They combine their online to offline or O2O ecosystem. So I'm demonstrating a third channel, online to offline, with their new F&B business model. We'll just go through the purchasing process. I like the structure of their products, where you can choose, you can choose your drinks, and you can, choose between pickup or deliveries. All the pricings is there, all the offerings are there, and when you start selecting, then you look at the order processing page, all right? You like this drink, and you click on it, and it also, one thing I like about Brunei is also has a loyalty system as part of the experience. Now, this is where you can track your spending, and also it's reflected by points, and which you can redeem. And now you're one step to closing a deal, and there you go on the checkout page. Now, this is the online part of the experience. The offline comes in when you either pick it up or have it delivered, to you. The difference between offline experience is when somebody walks into the shop, it'll be processed by the physical stores, but while somebody orders online, it's processed by the platform. What are the success numbers? These O2O experiences for them have reached 18,000 users with 62% monthly active users. Do your maths, there's about, 12,000 customers every month using this experience. So to answer the Slido today, is digitalization real? Oh, yes, if you know how to use it. Tag human experiences into the factor. Now, this is the Brunei experience of O2O ecosystem. Data, digital experience, delivery, centralized dispatch center, and F&B innovation. And you would think they are just a drink company. Yes, I buy my muskmelon drink a lot. But for most of us, it's just muskmelon and a lychee drink, yeah? But they're not just in the business of F&B. They are actually, they call themselves a technology data company. 18,000 users. Okay. I would like to thank Mr. Nicky Wong, founder Brunei, for sharing this information. According to him, he will never share this to anyone, and I greatly thank him if he's in the audience today. Okay. Now, let's take a quick quiz if you don't mind. I'm not too sure how much time I have. I'd just like to understand, from the floor, from the audience, what do you think that drives customers away? Can we take a quick poll and please give your answers? Can you show? Oh, interesting. Product not always available. Is the story of the fan I want to buy. Product always not available. It shows that demand is there, or bad employee attitudes, all right? Product not always available. One and three talks about experiences, unfriendly service, product not always available is a business inventory issue. You can quickly fix that. Inefficiency, again, relating to human. So one is, we have 9 altogether, okay? So you see, technology ranks very low. Nobody's going to blame me for not having technology. Again, technology is just an enabler. Bad employee attitudes. There you are. That sums my, experience. So if that's the sweet spot you want to, and have your product inventory available, no such thing as bad business. There's probably, in this case, in this context, it's just probably bad employees and, you don't have inventory to sell, perhaps, okay? And unfriendly service. Now, let's see how you all fare with the rest of the other countries for the same poll. Bad employee attitudes, sama. Unfriendly service, Brunei is number 3. Product not always available, it's not an issue elsewhere. But if you look here, it's all about the employees. Bad employee attitudes, unfriendly service, and also unknowledgeable employees. It's human. Inefficiency is probably can be solved by technology. Product can be solved by inventory. Inconsistent can be solved by technology. But, unfriendly service, those can be solved by technology if it's self-help. Only when you cannot reach self-help, then you will reach a human. Okay, now, so what's so real about this, the economic aspect of experience economy? Why does it matter to you? Why does it matter to customers? And why does it matter to perhaps even government agencies? Firstly, number one, you can always charge a premium pricing for your products or services. Sam survey from PwC. If you look at coffee, and this is from US survey data, you can get up to 16% more better pricing for just providing a good customer experience. Personally, for me, I don't go to franchise cafes anymore. I go to independent coffees. And you get, you chat a little bit with the barista, you talk about what beans is coming, and, single origin, and you have this experience, right? So that's why I think it gives rise to the success of independent coffee. And they don't mind paying a premium. I mean, it's evident. 1 cup is $5, sometimes $5.50. You ask for alternative milk, soy latte, it's another $1. You'll pay for it. Okay. Now, from the survey also shows that other industries can also see a potential price premium. Unfortunately, for again mobile phone plans, the survey shows that you can only charge 8%, for a better customer experience. Now, I'd like to share a car industry example, and I'd like to quote this UBS Evidence Lab survey that suggests a strong willingness for customers to buy their cars online, especially among younger generations. The most common reason cited for buying a car online is 54%. And while just to look at the options, and 47% wants to buy it out of convenience. Again, I was looking for Brunei data. Maybe anybody want to collaborate with DST to look at, to do some, survey on the surveys I've been displaying just now. Is I was looking other than Brunei. I managed to get data from Porsche Brunei, right? The Porsche Brunei objective was to create, not to create the car, to create an online product, okay, not cars, and a pricing portal, so they can be more transparent on what car you're buying and what car you are building. It's a unique buying experience where customers can build their own vehicle, and it just flow through. Now, Porsche.com.bn was introduced in 2019, and the pricing was only available in April 2020. Their strategy paid off and recorded an impressive year-on-year sales growth of about 38% from 2019 to 2020, and continued the following year in 2021 by a record 44%. I think the only thing missing here, if you can get a checkout function with, loan repayment schemes with better interest rate, with longer repayment periods, perhaps, it'll go higher. But it just shows you, same car, still premium, still high-end. By putting them online, they've just achieved growth. Now, you could do with, less high-end products. You could be selling a fan and have it online. And you could probably see, the same or if not better growth. This one I'd like to credit Mr. Lahiru De Silva. He's the GM for Porsche Brunei for sharing this information. Very kind of him, all right? Now, I'd like to share, somewhat not related, a success story of another online car sales portal. This is very recent, hence why I'm quoting this. It's a consortium led by Toyota. They bought over SG Carmart. It's just a portal, it's a website, and they bought it for $150 million from Singapore Press Holdings. And I think SPH bought it for about $50 million. 100 million, increase in valuation, just by growing the transactions that goes through the car portal. All right, so again, that was the second part of the economy in experience economy. The third part, that was, to summarize, it was increasing in revenue. And the third part is impact to real estate. As you probably experience yourself, online purchases are mainly attributable to clothing. Okay, this is a UK survey. The food deliveries, and also electronics. If you are in the real estate business of this, you cannot compete with online retailers. In the UK, where this survey is taken, it has taken on the physical retailers. And e-commerce have resulted the closure of UK's some largest department store, BHS, Debenhams, Bealls, and House of Fraser. And from 2016 to 2021, the UK has recorded about 388 department stores all over UK closed down because of the impact to real estate. Now, in Brunei, on the positive side, I noted that there are online sellers that have moved from online to occupy real estate. If you recall, these are potential multi-channel, omni-channel, online to offline models. Now, if more online sellers gets into the physical realm, this would give a positive impact to the Brunei real estate. I was going to get a quote, but she couldn't make it on time. Porta Arabia started selling online. They sell abayas, and they've just moved into a store. There's a lot of online sellers as well. I don't have the time to do a survey, and there's a lot more examples that has gone from online. And if more of this tends to happen, then you probably have a very positive impact to Brunei's real estate. Now, I want to focus experience, which is the outcome, again, as I say, of people, process, and technology. Remember, it's the people who demand and create the experience. The customers generate the revenue, but the employees are the ones driving the experience. Reduce the friction for customers and empower your employees to bring higher level of customer satisfaction. Bad attitudes, unfriendly service, fix that, all right? And that comes from your teams, from your employees, okay? You need to look at new ways of working. Sometimes it's not about the people attitude itself. Sometimes the processes is very blur, and you need to focus more on the employee experience because they're the one who's generating revenue for you. And last is technology. As I say, it's just an enabler. It provides for efficiency, it provides for convenience, but technology is not the solution. Businesses won't be able to solve their customer experience with technology alone. Just focus on the experience to realign priorities. Great employee experience brings stronger and will drive your businesses and provide superb customer experience. Now, before I leave, I'd like to give you 4 takeaways, okay? The economic impact in experience economy is very, very real. Great experiences are tangible, and this tangible can be, can result in increased revenue, can result in premium pricing. As you can see, it can also impact on the Brunei real estate. Bad experience, no need to say. You all know that will drive your customers away, as you all indicated through the survey. Now, again, remember about the people, all right? Human interaction matters, your employee matters, all right? Customers will still need to continue to demand for the human touch. And last, experience is the strategy. Understand if your business needs to be digitalized, understands, if not at its basic form, the experience gap that needs to be closed and have it closed. I think with that, I end my presentation today on experience economy. Sekian, wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Thank you. Do I stay or do I take some questions? Thank you. Go. Oh, okay. You're very welcome. Thank you. All right. Okay. I get the message. All right.
So I guess I'm just going to start since time is quite precious. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Haji Mas Zuraimi Ajadul Hamid, and I'm the head for Brunei Computer Emergency Response Team, as well as the Cyber Watch Center, which is the 2 core services for cyber security Brunei. Actually, I'm the DCOO for ITPSS, which is the one who's offering these two services to Cybersecurity Brunei. So for today, my topic is a little bit different from other presenters. I'm not going to talk about digital economy or technology, but I'm going to talk about the Brunei Darussalam cyber threats, what is happening at the moment in Brunei, as well as internationally and regionally. So if I can have the next slide. Yes, thank you. Just a quick recap about TLP. TLP is a best practice for any CERT organization to share information. So for this presentation, it is labeled as TLP wide, meaning that, can I have the next slide? Meaning that this is open for all, this information can be disseminated to everyone in Brunei Darussalam. So, okay. Next, please. Okay. Talking about cybersecurity, as you know, either it's digital economy or is it online transaction, cybersecurity is as a must. And for the past, as you know, technology is evolving very fast, and there have been a lot of cyber threats that has been happening, either international company or regional company, as well as in Brunei Darussalam. Okay, next slide, please. So, this is taken from Interpol assessment report on the 2021. And in this report, they share a lot of data breach which is happening regionally in ASEAN. For example, 1.1 million accounts has been compromised on the red mart of a company. A ransomware has been terrorizing around in Asia, hospitalized, business in Thailand, as well as ST Engineering Aerospace. And data breach has been happening around ASEAN, according to Interpol. So they share most of the common activities which is happening, which is business email compromise, phishing, ransomware, business as a crime, e-commerce, and other type of activities. Okay. For Brunei, this is a statistic. Oh, actually, the next slide. Yes, thank you. This is the statistic by CyberWatch Center, which we recorded for the past 2 years, and it's up to date recently until May. As you can see, malicious software is the most common threat in Brunei. Malicious software meaning viruses, ransomware, which is propagating to Brunei Darussalam. It's followed by reconnaissance, followed by denial of service, and of course, other activities. Other activities meaning root level intrusion, meaning domain controller or high privilege account has been compromised in most of organizations in Brunei Darussalam. And of course, user level intrusion meaning that a Facebook account, IG account has been compromised. So this statistic, as you can see, is related to most of the Interpol prediction which is happening in the ASEAN region. Okay, next slide. Now, this is the reported case that BRUCET has been receiving. The most common incident that we receive is social media issue or incident. The second part is about scam, and of course followed by sextortion or blackmailing in Brunei Darussalam. But for today's topic, I'm not going to talk about the social media issue. I'm just going to talk about the malware issue, especially involving ransomware, scam, involving with phishing and other type of reported accidents. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, has anyone read about this? The Fortinet vulnerability. I know most organizations in Brunei is using a Fortinet appliance, either their VPN equipment or even their firewall. According to this article, in the year 2020, 500 vulnerable VPNs, especially Fortinet, was exposed. Their password has been exposed. Next slide. This was exposed by a threat actor called Arande 2018, where she or he shared the plaintext credential of this vulnerable system on the internet. So BRUCET, through CWC as well, tried to find this credential online, and we managed to find it, and we found out that, the next slide, there's a numerous number of Brunei companies, organizations are being exposed because of a weak password on their VPN. And it was vulnerable. So, as Bruce said, we did notify all the organization to fix their vulnerable system as soon as possible because the credentials are being exposed online and anyone or any perpetrators can use this credential to gain access to their network and to gain access to most of their crucial information inside their organization. So far, alhamdulillah, when we perform the scan again, most of the organization has fixed their issue on their Fortinet VPN equipment. Okay, next slide, please. Now, most perpetrators or hackers now, they are trying to attack the supply chain. And so there's one issue, which is last year, involving SolarWinds. SolarWinds is a tool which is being used by organizations to manage their system, either their firewall or their other IT equipment. But unfortunately, on December 2020, a FireEye reported there was an ongoing investigation about cyber attacks against any firm or any organization using the SolarWinds technology. And it was found out that this system was vulnerable and 18,000 user was found, and some organizations are exposed about this SolarWinds vulnerability. Next slide, please. So FBI have issued a warning and a list of indicators, IOC, indicator of compromise, for organizations to check whether they are being compromised due to the SolarWinds attacks. And from our international partner, we identified there are a few Brunei organization was being exposed, which was being penetrated by using this vulnerability in their SolarWinds. Again, Bruce has advised this organization, and alhamdulillah, most of them has fixed this issue, which is by updating their SolarWinds equipment, as well as blocking most of the IOCs or indicator of compromise, which was being shared by FBI throughout the region. Okay, next slide. Okay, advanced threat prediction. This is a prediction by Kaspersky regarding about what is happening at the moment, especially involving APT, advanced persistent threat. As you know, APT threats at the moment, they are trading inside the dark web to gain initial access to compromised organizations from around the world. More countries are using legal indictments at the moment, part of their strategy, but most of it doesn't menjadi letup, in other words. Demanding money, weight menaces, ransomware, the use of cryptocurrency are quite convenient now for any hackers to ask for money to take ransomware. So this is what is the advanced threat prediction by Kaspersky, which has been done in 2021. Next slide. So this article was released in 2020, where it was indicated that Brunei has been a victim of this APT threat as well, namely Nikon. Because in the article, they said that Brunei Darussalam has been, the government especially, has been underwent by this attack for the past 5 years. So far, there are no concrete evidence mentioning about the involvement of Nikon, or even Lotus Blossom, or even Radium, threat actor. But due to some cases that Bruce handled, there are some tactics, and procedure which can use as attribute to this type of threat actors, which has managed to penetrate in some of Brunei Darussalam organization. Okay, next slide. So the use of technology, some basic and unnoticed technology, for example, like PS Exact is a legitimate Microsoft tool which can be used by system administrator. It's being misused by this threat actor to gain access and to gain persistence in our network. The use of Mimikatz, which can escalate privileged account or even less privileged account to become a privileged account so that they can gain control on your system, so that they can get all your data and exploit your data outside and to take ransom on you has been being used by using by mimikatz. And to stay persistent, they have to use VPN. Some indicators have showed the use of Soft Eater, which is a freely available software. Just download it, install it, and you can make your own personal hub inside the organization network with your computer. And using a normal port such as port 80 or 443. So even you have monitoring, it is quite difficult for analysts to indicate the system has been compromised because of the legitimate use of this port 80 and 443. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is a statistic from Bruset Honeypot. As you can see, it's mostly regarding about ransomware or malware, especially coin miner, generic Trojan, ransomware, and unknown type of malware which is attacking Brunei Darussalam, which is through our Bruset Honeypot sensor. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and Garmin is, I think, most of Bruneian using Garmin. They have become a victim of ransomware in the July, if not mistaken, 2020. And unfortunately, during that time, most of their customer could not check dorang punya steps, dorang punya health info, because the data has been encrypted. And due to pressure by the customers, it was rumored that government had paid the attacker 10 million so that they can get the decrypt key so that the customer detail can be recovered. So far in Brunei, okay, next slide. So far in Brunei, through our sensor, we did detect some ransomware, namely Grand Crab, the Sendoki atau ransomware, and some of the Conti variant has been detected through our sensor, which means that maybe there are some organizations are being infected by ransomware. We do handle some cases, Bruset, especially the lesser type of ransomware such as Tesla Crypt or Log Crypt type of ransomware in Brunei. Okay, next slide. Okay, lastly, scam. Brunei has been a victim of scam. Even through our statistic, we've been receiving a lot. Bruset has been receiving a lot of scam reports, especially involving Merah Sewa Bank. During the COVID, ada banyak COVID-19, people are trying to scam cepat kaya apa. So this is the normal tactics have been used for victim on Brunei Darussalam. Okay, I think that's the end of my presentation, I think. Because due to limited time, I have to cut it short. And I think I have to use this first. There will be no question and answer because I would like that the presenter have a time to present their presentation. So if you have any question, you can always go to booth D10 to D11. So Bruset and ITPSS is there, so you can ask me a question or more detail about Bruset services as well as Cyborg Center. So thank you. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you. For our next topic, we would like to invite our moderator, Yang Mulia, our Muhammad Yusmira Putra, in our Haji Muhammad, Head of Payment System Oversight, Brunei Darussalam Central Bank, BDCB, to kick off the next topic, digital payment in Brunei Darussalam.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin. Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Tuan-tuan, puan-puan, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here today to talk about something that's really near and dear to my heart. It's something that's been described, I think quite aptly, as the rising tide that raises all the ships, in that it empowers people to take command, to take control of their economic destinies. Other than that, it's also been described as one of those connective tissues, binding the digital economy together. And unfortunately, you know, its importance is often overshadowed by how much it's taken for granted. So what we're going to go through today is hopefully a kind of State of the Union address, and we hope to show you a couple of pictures about what the state of digital payments in our country is. And I can think of no better person to take us through that, to accompany me on this journey with you, than Tuan Hafiz Haslin. He is a Senior Investment Associate from Darussalam Assets, Sendirian Berhad. He sits on the board of directors of several government-linked companies and has been involved in delivering a range of M&A transactions, including the recent nationwide telecoms industry restructuring. Currently, he has the Project Management Office for the Digital Payment Hub Initiative, a flagship project of the Digital Economy Council, which is envisaged to promote nationwide usage of digital payments. Yeah? So let me preface this by saying that we have a fair bit of material to go through. I think we'll sail through those quite quickly because I really want to spend more time on the conversation and maybe some of the Q&A. I think you have QR codes available to scan, so you can send those questions in through Slido, and if we have time, we'll take those on board at the end of, towards the tail end of the discussion today. Right. Bismillah. Great. As I mentioned, you know, we have a great wealth of information in the slides today, but we'll go through them very quickly. Alhamdulillah, there's been a lot of talk today about the national direction just on digital economy in general. But what I really want to cover in this slide is that digital payment. It's not something that I think we want to have in and of itself. It's not something we want to have just for the sake of it. I really feel that it's something that has to feed into something bigger than itself. It has to feed into a larger narrative. It has to feed into a larger national objective. So if you think about the national high-level direction being the digital economy master plan, there's more detail that you can find out there just in terms of policy directions in BDCB's digital payment roadmap available on the website right now. I'll summarize it. Basically what it says is that we want to digitize payments as much as possible. We want to have a suite of solutions to support that digitalization, while at the same time being able to carry out our mandate in regulating the space, balancing customer welfare and the ability to drive developments and balance those two together. And finally, I think we also want to keep an eye on what's happening in the region, not just ASEAN, not just regionally, but also globally, in order to bring all those benefits that we see happening elsewhere into the country. Now, before I launch into what I think will be quite a dry piece of deck for everybody, let me preface it again by saying this. We are currently working on updating our payment roadmap to include a lot more data points, a lot more insights. We're still cleaning up all the stuff that we are planning to put into Roadmap 2.0, if that's what it's going to be called. So what you see on the slides coming up might not be the final version of what you see in the eventual issuance of 2.0. Now first, people tend to think about digital payments having this kind of adversarial relationship with cash. So the question tends to get flipped. Is cash still king? So the yellow line is what I'll cover first. That's cash in circulation. That's how much cash money, physical money, fiat money is actually floating around in the economy. It might be below some person's mattress, it might be in a vault, it might be in a safe, it might be in a pocket. All of that is taken into consideration. BDCB tracks this figure, and we can see that it's actually, slightly trending upwards, which is surprising given the various waves of pandemicity that we've been through. On the other end of that spectrum is the green line. So that denotes the value of digital payments. And there's more to break this down into. But you can see it crossing over and topping cash in circulation for the very first time in about 2018. In and of itself, that's quite interesting. But I think what's even more interesting than that is that we don't see a negative correlation between these two trend lines. Digital payments is going up, yet cash in circulation has not seen any dips. Zooming in on digital payments properly, so we've sliced and diced it in a couple of different ways. We've looked at channels. So we look at debit card, credit card, web, and mobile, something I think resonates quite well with all the conversations that have taken place today. So on my left-hand side, I think that's the same for you, we see volume, where volume is clearly dominated by cash and credit. Yeah. But on the value side, that's kind of flipped, where web is really, web is really taking off. I mean, there are a couple of assumptions we have to make here. There are a couple of analytical points that we need to make when coming to a conclusion. And those, I think you can look forward to in the roadmap. But I think just for the purposes of today, it really does show that there is a fair amount of digital payment taking place in the country at this point in time. And what accompanies that, I think, is also a plethora of use cases surrounding the usage of digital payment. Again, a different dimension of this is access to digital payment at point of sale. So when we say point of sale, we include payment terminals, we include QR codes, we include anything mobile. And again, very encouraging numbers. We see an uptrend for both number of merchants signed up as well as the actual physical terminals and QR codes being made available to the public. So when we were doing our data collection, we also asked players in the market what they were up to, what they are going to do, and a couple of challenges and enablers later on. And again, I'm sorry for having to summarize all of this, but what we really see is a focus right now, maybe over the past year and a half, where the players have really been looking at enhancing their existing channels. We've looked at what they're doing around introducing new channels. So we see NFC contactless card payment terminals come out into the market. We also see, very encouragingly, new use cases being built around existing channels. So 2020, I think we saw Zakat Fitrah payments being made available through one particular financial institutions, and that was expanded this year. That's really what I mean by expansion of use cases. And going into the future, we asked them to really spitball and think about what they are thinking about doing. Obviously, further enhancements to their existing channels. But interestingly enough, I think we really want to put a zoom in onto this point. There is a clear focus on retail payments. So a lot of stuff has been said about the MSME segments today and how we can support them. So again, I think there's very strong alignment, very, very strong messaging coming out from on high onto all the players in the market right now, and that's showing really, really encouraging signs. Besides that, the application programming interfaces, the APIs, that's a sign of open banking coming up. And what this means is that integrating into players' systems is going to be made easier, and that has knock-on effects to the digital economy as a whole. Now let's move on. What do the players see as challenges, as obstacles to efforts to increase the uptake of digital payments? Oops. Right. Scale. I think this is a no-brainer. It's been said multiple times in multiple fora. Small countries, small population, scale is difficult to achieve. It's difficult to justify the spending that you want to be able to do to bring these kind of solutions in. It's the perennial problem faced by all the players in the market. Besides that, I think I'll just condense it into saying that customer confidence is something that's lacking. I think a story, an anecdote shared was that nobody wants to pay nobody wants to use the payment solution if they're going to be stuck at a till with the circle going round and round for 5 minutes and the queue building up behind them. Education, I think, plays into this very importantly. Nobody is going to want to use something that they can't trust, that they don't understand. And I'll use that to segue into the next slide. So it's not all doom and gloom, ladies and gents. I'm glad to say, if we flip that previous slide on its head, these are things that we can and are addressing. Right at the top there, local retail payment infrastructure, which I'll leave Tuan Hafiz to talk about. All of these things you see on the screen can be addressed, not just by us, not just by the team over at HubCo, not just by His Majesty's government, but also the players in the industry themselves. There's going to be a lot of alignment required, a lot of collaboration, coordination, but I'm quite bullish on being able to address all of these, and you can read more about that in Roadmap 2.0. So finally, what's going to happen in the next 2-3 years? We'll continue to carry out our mandate in enhancing and coming up with new regulation, new frameworks, new controls put in place, really with an eye on keeping the customers safe and just financial stability in general. Digital Payment Hub, I think we'll cover later on. But I think there has to be a focus on improving education and awareness. Again, it's a numbers game, it's a scales game. It's always going to be chicken and egg. Are the merchants not going to use it because there are no customers willing to pay them using those solutions? Does that then mean that no customers are going to want to use it because no merchants are offering the option? The bridge, I think, is really upscaling and getting everybody on a level playing field by achieving a common point of understanding, a common level of comfort in using these kinds of solutions that we hope will come into the market. And I think that's a pretty good segue for me to hand the mic over to Tuan Hafiz. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Tuan Jaswira. I think okay. So Tuan Jaswira has actually set the bar a little bit high, and I'll try my best not to bore you with what we'll be talking about, which is the Digital Payment Hub, inshallah. Okay, I think as Tuan Jaswira mentioned, I'll walk everyone through what the current payment landscape is like domestically. I think there's a limited adoption of digital transactions, and that's largely attributed to maybe structural and some consumer behavior. The first part is we are facing some delayed payment settlements, non-instant cross-bank fund transfers, and as well as a limited availability of to be able to conduct cross-bank fund transfers in the economy right now. Okay. Overall, I think there's a generally low digital transaction rate. Approximately 80% of non-oil and gas economy is still cash-based. So perhaps cash is still king majority in Brunei. There's misalignment within the payment methods, and that has led to a spike in fraud cases. And in fact, I've heard of cases where some companies have had fraud cases where the value of transactions are in the 5-digit figures. Right now, I think there's a high cost of handling cash and checks, and generally we're looking at maybe between 3 and 5% of a company's operational expenses being attributed to handling cash. There's a very laborious method of counting and reconciliation at the end of every close of business, let alone at the end of every month. With that, there's a high degree of human error, and there's also large security and cash handling costs in general. Okay, and lastly, there is no local national payment rail, and there's a heavy reliance on international payment gateways at this point in time. So with all these in mind, the Digital Payment Hub is something that hopes to be able to address all the deficiencies that we see within the current economic landscape. The Digital Payment Hub is envisaged to be owned and operated by a consortium of local banks and Darussalam assets, and is also a flagship project of the Digital Economy Council. Now, the DPH is envisaged to be able to enable account-to-account fund transfers that are secure, instant, cost-effective, and on a 24/7 by 365 basis here in Brunei Darussalam. I'll quickly go through the product suite of the Digital Payment Hub at Go Live. So the first thing is an instant payment system where we are able to transfer funds between banks within a span of maybe 10 to 15 seconds for each transaction. And this is available on a 24/7, 365 basis. The second thing is effectively a national QR code, where by implementing this QR code, we won't have to see perhaps 3 or 4 different QR codes being placed on the stalls of merchants right now. And hopefully with this unified approach, this will improve the consumer experience and as well as the confidence in transacting by way of by digital methods. The third part is effectively a central addressing scheme, where this will enable us consumers to transact or transfer funds by way of unique aliases. So for example, mobile phone numbers, email addresses, IC numbers, and so on and so forth. I think this is something that we want to be able to address and is a key success factor in the rollout of the DPH in the future. Lastly, we want to also enable a local instant payment gateway, and this will help with the e-commerce businesses that we have up and running right now, who will be able to integrate with the payment gateway or payment system that the Digital Payment Hub will bring to market. Okay, so I think just sort of taking a zooming out a little bit, we just wanted to be able to set the scene as to where we are globally in terms of the rollout of real-time payment systems. Right now, we're looking at just over 60 jurisdictions having launched their own real-time payment systems. Another 4 are planned to be rolled out this year. Some countries already have real-time cross-border payment capabilities. So for example, Singapore and Thailand. And we do know that Singapore is working with Malaysia and India to be able to have these capabilities as well. Now, I think the use case for real-time payments is such that the quicker you settle your funds, the quicker you're able to use the money, and the higher the velocity of money. That means the economy just generally moves a lot quicker. So we wanted to also call out a few instances here. So in the event of Brazil, they have this instant payment system called PIX, which has been crucial to be able to increase the adoption of digital transactions overall. With the introduction of PIX in 2020, that enabled 40 million individuals to make their first digital transaction. And that has been massive for the adoption of and the facilitation of fintech in Brazil. Next is Swish. Swish basically runs on top of the real-time payment system there, and that's being implemented in Sweden. Through very good user interface, they've achieved a very seamless approach for a user experience, and that has driven the adoption rate in Sweden. Okay. Yep. Bahrain is a very, very good example as well. We have the Fawri Plus that was implemented quite some time ago. And the benefit pay, what we're seeing in Bahrain is a substantial adoption of real-time transactions. And right now in Bahrain, you can only do okay.
Saved by the bell, or do we keep going?
Okay.
Okay.
So interestingly, in Bahrain, they're seeing a massive adoption of real-time transactions. And interestingly enough, the only value proposition or the only use case right now is P2P transactions, so consumer-to-consumer interactions. And lastly, we gathered a lot of inspiration from Singapore via PayNow and the fast implementation. Now, what's interesting about Singapore is that they have had fast for quite some time now. And the introduction of PayNow, which is effectively the capability to transfer money by way of mobile phones, really drove the adoption rate for digital transactions. Okay. Very quickly now, the ecosystem benefits are evident here. So we hope to be able to connect the unbanked. So the extreme convenience being brought by the DPH will hopefully drive up the take-up of bank accounts. Instant fund transfers is a given. I think that's one of the product suites, and it has evident effects on the ecosystem. We want to be able to reduce the transaction cost in the market, so competitive tariffs will unlock greater cost savings for the consumers. Fintech or sector innovation, I think that's key. Hubco will be a huge enabler for more innovation within the fintech space. Ecosystem stability is an important one. I think as we are going to be introducing a very secure system, hopefully the fraud rate will see a downward spike. And lastly, again, improved transaction confidence, and this leads to higher adoption rate of digital transactions overall within the economy. Okay, I think in terms of the product roadmap, it's important that we phase this out appropriately. At launch, hopefully, we will see an instant payment system, which will have a national QR code attached to it, a national local payment gateway, and a central addressing scheme. The second part is effectively e-wallet interoperability, where consumers can transfer funds across e-wallets. So Wallet 1 will be able to transfer money to Wallet 2, and we should also enable fund transfers from e-wallets to bank accounts. And lastly is the cross-border instant payments, and I think this is where we have integration with RTP or real-time payment service operators regionally as well as globally. I think I'd like to end my presentation there, and maybe we can have a quick chat with Tuan Jaswira here.
Thanks, Hafiz. So, interesting sharings all around, and I don't just want to toot my own horn there, but a lot has been said today about the digital economy master plan and how digital payments kind of works into that larger narrative. I think it's difficult to appreciate for some people how difficult it is to build something where there are existing players compared to when you try to build something in a vacuum. So just for context, competitors or substitutes to the DPH would be the existing cards you already have in your wallets right now. Besides that, the banks, the financial institutions also have complements or substitutes depending on what angle you're looking at that from. So talk to me a little bit, Hafiz, about, and I apologize again for going off script. Everyone, I'll be a full disclosure, we had this all planned out, but that was out the window. So we're going off script a little bit here. What was the pitch? You're building something, you're dealing with high-level government executives and stuff. I think that part is pretty much put to bed now given the stage of the project that you're at. But talk to me as somebody on the street. Talk to me as like a pachi or machi who you're trying to persuade to sign up for the DPH services. What's the pitch there?
I think that's an interesting question, and the use case for consumers, maybe I can get into a couple. The average user here will be able to receive funds almost immediately in their bank accounts, something that isn't already available in the context of interbank transfers, at least. True to its name, the instant payment system enables immediate settlement of funds. That means funds are in your bank account immediately instead of 1 to 2 days, and you are able to use that money immediately in the context of transacting, transferring further, and so on and so forth.
And that's different from what's currently available via RTGS through the banks.
Yep. I think the main difference between the instant payment system and the RTGS, I think they're both true to its name, they're both instant. Now, the IPS makes funds immediately available, and generally the IPS is used for smaller retail transactions. So if I were to transact, $5 to $10, I would need something like an IPS rather than an RTGS, which has generally higher cost attached to it. So I think that differentiates between the RTGS and IPS. Now, I think in the context of general consumers, yes, the Pachi Machi will be able to receive cash faster, but I think there's an evident benefit for vendors and merchants being able to receive the cash immediately, and immediately, as a result of that, keep tabs of how much you've collected throughout the day, I think that'll benefit a lot of merchants, right? Instead of having to reconcile, count your cash at the end of the day, and have these sort of periodic notifications to say, hey, you've received $5, $10 so far. That'll really go far in terms of the reconciliation process and the ease of doing business. So I think those are two probably immediate effects.
Right. You had this fascinating slide earlier about what's happening in other countries. And that's always interesting. We always have to benchmark ourselves against regional peers. That's fine. But having gone through this entire process from what I think is the very beginning, you probably had to build a business case to get to the point that we are at now, where you've got a spot at the pavilion, you're showcasing the potential capabilities of the DPH. Tell me, what do you think the key success factors of an endeavor like this might be? What does the success or the failure of the DPH hinge on, in your mind?
Yeah, I think it's really important, right? The business case is one thing, but the key success factors are probably two things that are interlinked somehow. We have to appreciate the fact that the real-time payment system or an instant payment system is an enabler for many other ecosystem benefits. Just across the world, there have been studies that have been done. For every transaction that you make via a real-time payment system, the cost savings to the economy span from maybe $1 to $3 US. And that averages and changes between the different economies. Now, I think in terms of key success factors, there are quite a few. The first is definitely consumer confidence. Consumers need to be confident in the fact that a digital payment hub can settle your funds. The fraud rate is kept at a minimal. And we are true to our word. It's instant. It's available 24/7, 365. And hopefully with the buildup of consumer confidence, we see a higher adoption rate as well. The other thing as well is the consumer experience that they'll be facing. Now, that's extremely important for us to be able to drive adoption of digital rates. Making it, even a shift from 5 steps to be able to complete a transaction to 2 steps, I think that'll really be a deciding factor for our success, for the success of the system as well. Lastly, I think is ecosystem partnership. Now, the digital payment hub is not intended to be a front-facing or retail-facing application software product at all. That means that we need to collaborate with all ecosystem partners, whether it be financial institutions, non-bank financial institutions, payment service providers, to bring the best consumer experience to market that we can possibly get. So I think perhaps those are three main success factors that we're looking at.
Fascinating stuff. Are we getting any questions coming in? Could we put that on the screen? Well, I don't know if Hafiz has any questions that he wants to shoot back at me?
Yeah, I think in terms of the DPH, I'm curious as to what sort of use cases you'd like to see the DPH roll out in the near future. I know we talked about the QR code, we talked about transferring money using mobile phone numbers, but perhaps I wanted to pick your brains as to what other use cases we could bring to the market.
Sure, it's an interesting question. We typically think about payments as something that that the payer, I go to a store, I want to purchase something, I as the person who is making the purchase has to initiate the transaction. So if we think about payments being an enabler of commerce, an enabler of digital activity, a digital economic activity, I think that that's something that has to be flipped on its head. So there's a product out there called Request to Pay or Pay by Link. And that really flips that entire model on its head, where the power to initiate a transaction is handed over to the merchant. So I don't have to wait for my customer to pull his phone out. I don't have to wait for my customer to take a look at the invoice. I don't have to send a follow-up letter urging payment within 60 days or something like that, simply because it's too difficult for them to initiate or follow through on that transaction. So if I had a product like that, an electronic invoicing system, perhaps, that I could then email or SMS or send via any chat application, where a customer could just take a look, verify the contents and the amount, tap, and that's linked to a bank account or a wallet, and that payment just gets shot through quick. Think about how that would address all that friction that you were talking about, 5 steps to 2 steps. I think about Pay Now in Singapore, and talking to colleagues over at the MYCE. The design thinking that went into Pay Now was really simple. All you have to do, all he wanted the banks to do was let customers pay in 3 taps. I think that really goes to show in the take-up and the taking off of the volume that goes through Pay Now nowadays. So shall we go into the questions? I'm not sure how much time we have. This has been such a thrilling ride. I'm seeing two questions. Ken? What do you think, Hafiz?
Should we talk about the first one? Interesting approach for the DPH. Are the banks finally playing ball?
Okay, let's dig into this. It's such an interesting question because of the adversarial tone. Are the banks finally playing ball? And it really goes to show the kind of dynamic that comes across for those not in the industry. I don't know. How do you want to approach that? I mean, I obviously have my own thoughts on this, but I'll let you go first.
No, go ahead. Yeah. Oh, it's been taken off. So maybe the first one here. Can we have a workshop how to earn money from YouTube, TikTok? I'm not necessarily an expert in YouTube or TikTok in being able to monetize content, but perhaps Tuan Jaswira here might have some tips.
I'll get back to you when I talk to my little girls, okay? They're pretty up to date on these things. But let's talk about approach for the DPH. Banks finally playing ball. Why don't you start?
No, I think elsewhere we're seeing that these real-time payment systems are being introduced to market via a consortium of different banks. And I think here what we have for Digital Payment Hub is the fact that we have a consortium of local banks actually, yes, being part of the consortium, yes, showing intent to be able to roll this out to market. Are the banks finally playing ball? Perhaps I'll
jump in there.
No comment to that.
I do realize that there is this preconception that the banks have resisted this, maybe. I think that is quite true to a certain extent, but only to a certain extent. There are commercial considerations that go into these kinds of plays. And just thinking about the development of the economy, the digital economy, the kind of business models out there, the kind of markets that they can draw revenues from, maybe, and just maybe, those particular pieces, those particular elements were not there in enough size for them to be able to sustainably run something of this nature. Now, I think those elements are finally creeping up. We see something like people asking about YouTube and TikTok, which is a strong indicator of the digital economy. So I think that plays in there very well. But I will again concede that something as lofty as having our own piece of infrastructure, which, make no mistake, it is quite a lofty ambition, does require a bit of a nudge from parties on high, from the regulators. It does require a lot of coordination, a lot of messaging, and a lot of coordination. So while I do see the sentiment playing ball, quote unquote, it really was just realizing how big of a pie there was, and then just really recognizing the value in collaborating on that.
Okay, just probably a time check. Do we still have time for, no?
Yes, one more? No? Okay, we're getting nods.
Okay, perhaps this one, very relevant question here for SMEs looking to expand into non-local markets. When will Brunei be able to accept PayPal transactions? I think,
sure.
Tuanjas?
I can cover that quite easily. We came out with publication in the local newspapers as well as during LegCo. Some years ago now, clarifying this issue to great detail. The ability of PayPal to open up that particular functionality in our country is a purely commercial decision. So the ball really is in their court, whether they want to make that functionality available to customers in Brunei. I'm talking specifically about the receive function. We are able to pay quite well, quite easily here. And again, from the horse's mouth, without revealing too much, it's something that we've talked about today already. It's scale. Opening up these kind of payment rails and the associated correspondent banking relationships, KYC, AML risks, it's a really big can of worms you open when you delve into or when you enter into a market. And weighing the benefits against the costs, I suppose what happened within PayPal's walls was that it just wasn't a great decision for them to do so.
Okay. I think we've run out of time here, Tuan Just.
So, thank you very much to everyone for lending us your ears. Thank you very much to the Secretariat and our colleagues at the side for inviting us to deliver our talk today. It's an exciting space. Keep your eyes glued to what Hafiz and team are doing over at the pavilion in the middle over there, and thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I would like to thank the Ministry of Transport and Info Communications and the Authority for Info Communications Technology Industry for inviting me to speak on behalf of ITPSS today. The Information Technology Protective Security Services is the leading cybersecurity solutions provider in Brunei Darussalam. Our company consists of all trained Bruneian professionals in various fields of cybersecurity, such as digital forensics, network security, blockchain, and so on. I am Zara Laila, an analyst under the Research and Development Division focused on blockchain-related solutions. I possess a Master's in Information Security, where I previously produced a conference proceeding paper providing academic credential verification using blockchain for Brunei Darussalam, which may be found on Google Scholar. And I also have a bachelor's degree in computer science. I hold various blockchain-focused certifications and continue to expand my knowledge and training as we speak. I'm actually part of a dream team led by Tuan Fahmi Osman, whom we actually refer to as a genius, and two other highly trained blockchain developers, Safwan Ahman and Haziq Hamzani. The development of our digital identity solution is greatly supported by a team of highly trained AI experts and infrastructure network security experts. We actively consult other cybersecurity experts to ensure the integrity of our project and the data is protected and maintained. It is with great pleasure that I now introduce our blockchain-powered digital identity solution for Brunei Darussalam. Identity initially emerged as nothing more than a PhD proposal. With the support of our CEO, Tuan Shamsul, our CIO, Tuan Azman, and our Deputy CISO, Tuan Zaki, we were able to envision and begin the development of this research for Brunei Darussalam in May of last year. It's been an amazing experience witnessing a theory come alive. This would be any researcher's dream. So what exactly is identity? Identity is a digital identity solution with verifiable credential capabilities powered by blockchain technology, which has the security features required to ensure that the credentials issued are not modified for malicious intent. So as what we do in ITPSS is naturally to maintain security. So this is our area of focus here. The main features of our solutions include enhanced security to ensure the integrity of the data, remote biometric verification, developed in-house by our team of AI experts, zero-knowledge proof to prevent oversharing of sensitive information, real-time verification, and passwordless login. As part of our initial research and development phase, we were required to identify problems we currently face in Brunei Darussalam with our conventional system. The first would be the management of multiple usernames and passwords. A person may hold too much login credentials to keep track of. An example would be having a username and password for our BIBD, another one for Standard Chartered Bank, another one for Baiduri, and another one for gov.bn using eDarussalam. Naturally, I would usually just reset my password. Most official applications, whether it be with the government or private entity, often require our IC, but our IC itself contains too much confidential information. This information can potentially be used to access our banking information through the phone as a verification. Because when we call, let's say, the bank, they would ask for certain credential IDs like our full name, our address, our date of birth. These are all available on our IC itself. Transactions performed offline, such as providing our IC copy to various organizations and companies, are difficult to keep track of. I personally wouldn't be able to keep track of how many companies currently have a copy of my IC and what they're using it for. Individuals will look for ways to obtain income illegally, create fraudulent identification cards just to apply for a loan or steal another person's money by accessing their bank accounts using their identity. Unverifiable revocation. How can we immediately determine that a person's credential has already been revoked? If a person had authority to collect money on their company's behalf with a previously issued company ID that they claim they lost upon resignation, they would be able to continue claiming money on the company's behalf. So this has become a problem. The only way to verify this is to contact the company directly. There is no real-time verification. In order to verify a credential, we will be required to contact the credential issuer directly. This may be a very tedious process and time-consuming process for many. An example would be academic certificates. Imagine if we graduated overseas and we wanted to verify that a certain employee did indeed graduate from their university. Even that would take time. Let's also take into consideration the time difference and cost. Finally, centralized database, as opposed to blockchains, possess their own vulnerabilities. If there is no fault tolerance set up to protect the database, they risk losing all their data stored in that centralized database. Misplaced physical credentials. In my whole life, I've only misplaced my IC and birth certificate once. Even that incurred a penalty fee. It was replaceable, but I first had to make a police report. But as for academic credentials, I had much early in my life. It's hopeless for me to obtain them now. Luckily, I don't even need them. These are the issues many, including myself, currently face, not just here in Brunei Darussalam, but overseas as well. I believe we're on the wrong slide. Before that, lagi. Sorry. Next. Previous lagi. I believe these are not the latest slides. Okay. I hope everyone was still able to catch up with the problems I've mentioned earlier. Okay. As they prepare the correct slides, I'll just proceed. So in 2020, Brunei Darussalam has become home to approximately 453,000 people, a 36.1 increase of 120,000 people as compared to the year 2000. So that's a 20-year difference when the Smart Identity Card Management was first implemented in Brunei Darussalam. In conformance with Wawasan Brunei 2035 framework, it is fundamental to provide high standards of living for the people of Brunei whilst providing macroeconomic stability. As the population continues to grow with the interest of becoming a digitalized smart nation, it is essential to explore the latest technological advancements with the objective of establishing trust between an issuer, a holder, and a verifier. So these are actually three parties involved. An issuer can be someone who provides the credential and identity. A holder would be ourselves, the identity holder, and a verifier who we share that data with regards to government-issued credentials. Next slide, please. Okay, this one. So this is one news that shocked so many. The circulation of forged identification cards which were sold off to foreigners. This was disappointing because the privileges of being Bruneian and a permanent resident included free and subsidized healthcare, education, registry of companies, and even access to jobs in the government meant for our people. So a credential is a piece of document that details a qualification, competence, or authority issued to an individual by a party with relevant or de facto authority. Unlike conventional credentials, a verifiable credential can be shared and authenticated remotely over digital channels real-time, in this case, the blockchain. Here I share a few examples of credentials, but are not limited to what our solution can cover. Another example would be our birth certificate. So we have chosen to integrate our verifiable credential solution with blockchain technology. It is a distributed ledger of immutable digital records shared amongst participating nodes on a peer-to-peer network based on a consensus verification mechanism. I know this is very difficult to understand now, but this is not something I can explain in a 20-minute session, especially today. The technology is known worldwide in the tech industry for its security features. This includes decentralization, meaning that there is no single point of authority for the system, allowing no room for corruption. Immutability, so that the data is not modifiable. Once you add a new transaction onto the blockchain, it can no longer be deleted or removed or modified. Asymmetric cryptography, for the security of the connection and the data that we handle. Distributed ledger technology to ensure that every node on the network has a copy of the same transaction. Consensus mechanism to ensure that the transactions mined onto the blockchain is not for malicious intent. And hash Merkle tree structure, where if any one datum within the blockchain is modified, it will deem all the following blocks within that node invalid to instantly trace the source of modification. By integrating blockchain technology with the verifiable credentials, we can provide transparency, maintain integrity, immutability, enhance security, distributed ledger architecture, efficiency and automation, auditability and traceability, and reduce transactional costs as we minimize human interference and intermediaries. Previously, I mentioned zero knowledge proof under identity. So this is one of our main features. Our system now has the ability to share limited data based on the requirement by authorities through selective disclosure or predicate proof without compromising sensitive information. Because the whole objective of implementing identity would be for self-sovereignty. We, as the people, have control over our data. Here I have two examples, selective disclosure and predicate proof. Selective disclosure displays data that is only necessary to prove a requirement, whereas predicate proof avoids displaying information just that a criteria is met or not. I would like to give an example. Let's say I were to become a member at a gym, and they want to know that if I am at least 18 years old. So with selective disclosure, it will hide all my data except for my birthday. As you can see here, my name and date of birth is shown. But with predicate proof, we won't even have to show any data other than the fact that, am I 18? Am I at least 18 years old? Then yes. So here are the various use cases that we can apply identity. I would like to use, as I'm currently expecting, I would like to use my son, whom I will call Awang, as an example. So when Awang is born, he is issued his first digital identity credential, a birth certificate by JIPK. At 2 years old, Awang applies to school using this JIPK digitally issued birth certificate. We would no longer be required to bring our physical birth certificate to the school for them to verify. Awang receives his first COVID-19 vaccination birth certificate issued by MOH upon completing 2 doses. We can use this to be verified upon when we travel and whatnot, depending on what are the requirements in the future. At 10 years old, MOE issues PSR academic credentials to Awang for secondary school registration. The secondary school can verify the certificate as well. When he turns 12 years old, we will have to enroll his biometric information, which is his face, a picture of his face and his fingerprint into the JIPK system to be integrated with identity. At 15 years old, MOE issues his GCE level academic certificate for pre-university registration. At 16, he registers for a bank account, but he would be required to undergo eKYC. So this is a solution that we're actually providing to private institutions such as banks who need to remotely verify the people or to be done at the premise itself. At 17 years old, MOE issues GCE A-level academic certificate to Awang for his university registration. Sometime after that, Awang applies for a government scholarship at university by verifying previously issued credentials. This would be with MOE. So if they wanted to instantly verify that this academic credential is indeed authentic, they can also use our system. Because based on my previous case study that I've conducted and researched, they have received fake credentials previously from students who have forged them. At 18 years old, JPD issues Awang his first driver's license upon completing his driving test. At 20 years old, he graduates from university with a bachelor's degree, which is issued into his identity. And at sometime after that, he applies for a position with SPA to verify relevant documents. So I've also conducted interview previously with SPA. One of the requirements when submitting academic credentials that were issued overseas would be to get a further support certificate from BDAC, the Brunei Darussalam Accreditation Council, to ensure that the document is indeed authentic. So this is one of another way for SPA to instantly verify that the academic credential provided to them is not fake. At 21 years old, Awang begins working for the government and is registered a TAP credential. And at 22 years old, Awang applies for his first car and house loan with the bank using the eKYC of identity. Next slide, please. So here I'll just be showing a few of the mock-ups that we have. This is the remote biometric verification created by our in-house team of AI experts. So what is required is for the onboarding process that we have created for the convenience of our users is to first scan their IC. Then the data on their IC will be read by the engine itself, and it will be cross-referenced back with JIPK's database. The photo won't be cross-referenced with the IC we have there because that can be easily manipulated. So to verify the face. So once that has been verified, then they will be able to use identity and be issued their digital ID immediately by JIPK. Next slide, please. So we understand that not everyone's phone is up to date. We provide an alternative solution for incompatible devices. We can set up kiosks throughout the nation where they can use the fingerprint scanner and facial scanner, and the digital ID will immediately be issued into their mobile devices. Next, please. Here's the interface we have created for JIPK as our prototype. So for the convenience of the people working for JIPK, we wanted them to be able to instantly understand the system. We only have a few buttons to click, and the process is very simple, seamless. So when we want to issue credentials, we just have to click the issue credential button, and it will first show the person's identity details to see for the user to check if it's correct or not. Next slide. Then a QR code, once that is correct, a QR code is generated for the user to verify from their mobile device. So the user would only have to scan the QR code. Then a lot of technical connection verification is done with the blockchain behind the scene, and the digital ID would be issued into their wallet. But we're not just limiting this to just digital to JIPK issued credentials. This can be academic certificates, driver's license, and so on. Next slide, please. So I mentioned the issue with revocation earlier. I also mentioned that once you add data onto the blockchain, it cannot be removed. So what we're actually doing is we're updating the we're adding an accumulator value onto the blockchain to show that the data has actually been revoked. So this allows for instant revocation. Once it has been revoked, this data will no longer be shown on their mobile device. So they can no longer use that identity to apply for anything like a car loan and whatnot. So here we have passwordless login API. So this is just an example of what we're hoping to achieve by the end of the year. We're hoping to, throughout the transition phase, we would still be using Darussalam to log into gov.bn services. But going forward, we're hoping to use Identity to just simply log in using your mobile device by scanning a QR code, and it will automatically log in that individual by reading the JIPK issue data. So this ensures that the person logging in is not anyone else. So it's not as easy as me giving my password to someone else and username and telling them to log into the system. Next slide, please. We are currently within the development phase of our minimum viable product and hope to deploy our finalized product by the end of the year. We call upon the support of various government organizations and private companies to take part in the development of our project to maximize the best delivery of our solution for the people of Brunei. Now that we have reached the end of our presentation, I would like to invite members of the audience to visit our booth at the Smart Nation exhibition to take a look at our demo and address any questions that they may have. Thank you so much.
We have now reached our last topic of the day. May we now invite Yang Mulia, our Honorable Nizam bin Al Osman, Assistant Chief Executive, Industry Development Group of AITI, to present the topic, Facilitating the Development of Digital Industry and Empowering Human Capability.
Testing. Okay, thank you. So, so for the topic today is on the facilitating the development of digital industry and empowering human capability. So the idea is to share some of our AITI initiative in these areas. So next slide. So before moving to the main content of the presentation, let me share a bit on some of the megatrends that affect the industries nowadays. So no one can deny that we are living in a hyper-connected world. The ITU Global Connectivity Report 2022 highlighted that in the last 30 years, the internet users growing from just a mere few millions to 5 billion internet users nowadays. So, but what is interesting is that we have around 15.1 billion Internet of Things connected. So this is like your devices and your phones, your smartwatch. So we see a lot of connections. In Brunei Darussalam, so we have around 140% penetration of our mobile phones. So in a way that we have more mobile phones than population in Brunei. And in terms of our household, we have a 75% household penetration for fixed broadband. So because of this, there's a growing digital consumers. So basically, in terms of the digital consumers, so there is a lot of digital consumers, which I can explain later in terms of the region. But the reason for this is because of the rapid technology development and digitalization. As you know, 5G is happening. So we can see in the last 20 years, the technology has moved from 2G to 5G. And then there is a lot of development in terms of cloud, and we talk about blockchain just now. So, for example, like in this region, in Indonesia, AWS just invested 5 billion of cloud connectivity. So all this technology development provide an increasing digital application. So nowadays, everything you can do digital. For example, like, in terms of buying things, looking for your traffic, for example, like knowing what time you're going to arrive for a certain destination. Even like when we're at Singapore, so basically we need to do the ART, and we can even do ART digitally. So meaning that through our phone, we can take a photo and then we'll give in a digital certificate to do this. So in a way, there is a lot of increasing, there's an increasing digital application. Next slide. So just to give a context in terms of this region, the ASEAN region, Google, together with Temasek and Bain, provide an annual report of the digital economy, particularly on the e-commerce. So they have done this for the last 6 years. I think what is interesting is that more and more digital consumers are present in a way that 8 out of 10 internet users are digital consumers. So what we can see in terms of the figures, in 2021, the gross merchandise value is 174 billion, and then it will grow to 363 billion in 2025, and then it will go into a trillion value in 2030. So you can see this comprised of e-commerce, transport, travel, and online media. So just now we talk about how the digital technology is important. So one of the interesting survey from this report is that 35% of merchants believe that they would not have survived COVID if they don't take a digital solution, particularly digital platform, financial services, and digital tools. And digital solution help to create more jobs, where 83% of them is saying creates more jobs, 84% is saying improve livelihood, 87% is saying improve revenue and more opportunities. Next slide. So in Brunei, looking at all these mega trends and development, so under the Digital Economy Master Plan, they have realized all this development, and in fact, there is quite a detailed roadmap in terms of moving towards the digital economy. There's 2 things I wanted to highlight here in terms of the strategic thrust of the Digital Economy Master Plan. One is on industry digitalization and manpower. So the digital economy highlighted the focus for readiness for industries across those various clusters to adopt 4th IR. And manpower and talent development is one of the crucial elements to kind of support this. And as Tuan Haji Nazri mentioned just now, the expectation is for all these industries to have their own industry digital plans to kind of help the businesses among the industries to take the opportunity of the digital economy. Next slide. So we are working with AATI together with MTIC, particularly on the Smart Nation Office and BDB. So we try to help the industry cluster to look into how we can digitalize the industry. We've conducted a few workshops with the industry sectors in the construction, agri-food, and tourism to date. So what we always highlight is, I mean, digitalization or technology is a means to an end. So people need to know that digitalization doesn't mean that having the fanciest gadgets or digital tools. So basically, it starts with the ambition, the motivation to address some of the challenges and how digitalization or technology can help. And when we look into this, so there's various digital maturity assessment or models that we can actually look into and to map. So the question will always, when we engage, what are the challenges? What do we seek to achieve from digitalization? And what capabilities that we have or what the industry have? And basically, there is a lot of model or canvas that we can go through to kind of look into how we can transform companies to be more digitally savvy. Next slide. So, as a simple kind of digital transformation, there is like these 3Ds in terms of digital transformation. One is you digitize, and then you digitalize, and then you do digital transformation. So let's just give a simple example. For example, in terms of your HR management, your leave. So probably in terms of how traditionally we do it is it's paper-based. You need to fill in your leave and then submit to your boss and so forth. So the first step is, can we digitize this? So make like just a form where then you can fill in, and then you can just submit through emails. That eliminates the need for paper-based documents. And then we move further in terms of digitalization. So then we can develop a system where it maps in terms of the HR policies, your leave entitlement, and then and basically in terms of the approval process. And then in terms of transformation, the use of data analytics, for example, you can understand the organization behavior in terms of your leave, the staff leave management and so forth, so to better the organization. So these are for example, like example steps of digitalization. I mean, you can go to various kind of areas that we can think of. Next slide. Cisco actually share in terms of a bit more detail. So again, they look into various stages in terms of the maturity. Then they break it down into strategy, organization, processes, technology, and people and scale. So for example, like in terms of stage 1 to stage 4, for example, in terms of strategy or organization, that company is reactive versus stage 4 where it is more proactive. And then in terms of process, again, it's a manual versus fully automated process. And then in terms of technology, we'll talk about tactical investment versus cloud first and to deploy analytics, for example. And then in terms of people, having no skill to having the right skill to kind of develop all this application. So next slide. When we did with the AITI did a study with CSPS on the ICT market study. So basically, we use CSPS used this model to kind of see where we are. I mean, just to share with you, we are in between stage 1 and stage 2 in terms of businesses in Brunei. So just to get in context of the technology, when we survey about 450 MSMEs, so of course there is already use of technology, but this is in the form of basic technology. For example, like internet, PC, and smartphones. But in terms of, for example, like intermediate, we see the figures is decreasing. For example, the website, 50% are using website and data storage. But as we go a bit more advanced, for example, in terms of data mining, e-commerce, and supply chain management, so the percentage of businesses adopting these technologies is not really high. So, next slide. So when we look into this, again, there's opportunity to kind of increase the take-up in terms of these digital solutions. So for us to grow the digital industry, we have to look into a two-pronged approach. One is there is a need to take up this technology. And secondly is whether we can develop or come up with this solution. So we basically look into, for example, like in terms of the demand side. So there is a need for MSMEs to take up. So how we kind of like stimulate this is there is a need to demonstrate or validate some of these projects. It's like how we kind of initiate so that MSMEs think that, you know, this is something very relevant and useful for them to take up. And also, there is a need to provide support. For example, in terms of financial, technical advisory, and so forth, and so on. On the other hand, is we don't want to just export technology, because in the end, you know, you will ended up just, you know, buying technologies, and doesn't actually reflect the growth of our local ICT industry. So, but then there's always a saying is that whether our local company is able to do this, and this leads to, in terms of our talent. So there is a need to kind of increase our skill capability in terms of providing certified trainings, retraining, upskilling, and also working between the university and the industry to ensure that these graduates are ready to be industry ready. Next slide. So this comes to the initiative that actually AITI do with regards to the industry development and human capacity. So the first initiative that we wanted to highlight is we introduced this tech clinic where we want to help MSME to assess their digitalization state. So we appointed a digitalization expert, and we welcome MSMEs to have this session to know what MSMEs digitalization opportunities are, and look into some of the local solutions that they can take up to transform their business. Second is on the Penjana, which is short for Productivity and Efficiency Joint Funding Scheme for Digital Adoption. So the idea is AITI to provide funding support on the use of digital solution, the local digital solution, to ensure that enterprises can improve their productivity and business operation using these digital tools. Next slide. We also provide tech immersion program aimed at startups to equip them with the essential emerging technologies such as AI, Internet of Things, and data analytics. So we started last year, and then we're going to continue this year in terms of the tech immersion. The market creation. So this is one of the projects that we work with enterprises on a pilot project basis to assist enterprises to look into how they can use data analytics and IoT to see how they can make use of data and use data analytics to better deal with their operation. So some of this initiative, you can visit our AITI booth to get more detail on how we actually work with enterprises on this industry development initiative. Next slide. On the digital skills, we provide the digital upskilling, which is a program to facilitate the upskilling and reskilling of both the youth job seekers and the ICT workforce by providing funding support for them to acquire a certified industry certification. We work with various training providers to ensure that the courses offered are very relevant to the current industry needs. And we also provide a coding.bn. Again, this is targeting for the youth to ensure that they are industry ready. So it's a 6 months programs where 3 months is to onboard them in terms of coding development and 3 months in terms of placement to some of the hosting companies. And lastly, AITI, under the MYCE, AITI, together with the industry players, developed the Brunei ICT competency framework. So with the idea to ensure that ICT professionals have the relevant skills aligned to the national standards being developed across the industry. To date, we have 20 job roles with around 82 technical and soft skills that has been approved by the MYCE working groups. So that is all my presentation. Again, for those who are interested to know more about AITI initiative, you can visit our booth, or you can write me an email at nizam.othman@aiti.gov.bn in terms of understanding further or wish to work further with AITI on this initiative. Thank you.